Brygorg, 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 Brygorg. We're going to talk about Brughor AxeBiter, another lost mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. I'm doing my sound check right now when I know that everything is working fine, like somebody actually sends me a message or I can hear myself, then I know I got it right. Okay, alright, so I can hear myself, so that's good. So everything is working as it should be as far as I can tell. And you, if you are in the live chat, you will let me know if things aren't going well. Hi Brandon, how's it going? I'm doing reasonably well. My voice is a little bit funny. Maybe I need to do the saltwater treatment, but I will do my best to make sure everything sounds pretty good. I've opened my window. If you can hear noise from outside, the cicadas are having a great old time. But anyway, it's time to get on with business, right? It's time for the show. So first off, you will find the start time for this video down in the description. So just jump down there. When it gets published, I usually put it in once it's gone high definition. Hi Steve, how's it going? Hi Joe. Hello. Dear Jesus, hello man. Welcome to the live stream. So what I normally do, if you haven't ever been part of my live stream, is I present everything first, because I'm not looking at the live chat, I'm looking at all my little slides and so forth as I shuffle through things. I present everything first. Once I've presented everything that I have prepared for today, I open it up to the live stream at the end to answer questions, take on feedback. Maybe somebody's done something a little bit differently. Just say hi, or just say, look, I don't agree, or I've done it differently, or my players played it out this way. I will share some of the things my players have done. So if you were hoping to get that sort of feedback, that all happens. So don't worry. No reason to freak out. Okay, I need a drink of water. Clear the pipes, and let's get started. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And we are going to talk about the Lost Mine of Phandelver. This is a Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. So if you are a player and you're playing this game right now, this is a good time for you to leave, because I don't want you to spoil it for yourself. I know your Dungeon Master won't appreciate it, and so therefore it would be a good idea to go and watch one of my other videos. Or come back and watch this video when you finish playing through the Lost Mine of Phandelver, or at least the section that covers this particular character. Okay, today we're going to talk about Brughor AxeBiter. Now, how's that pronounced? Is it Brughor? Is it Brughor? Is it Brughor? I mean, who knows? Pick a name and pronunciation. Well, the name is there, it's written down. Pick a pronunciation, go with it. I don't think it's a big deal myself. I've heard people pronounce Brughor different ways with stress on different vowels and different consonants, so I don't think it's a big issue. Do it how you think it's going to work. So if you turn to page 35 of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, you will find information on Brughor AxeBiter. There's not a huge amount, and I know for a few people who are running the game, that's not really going to be good enough. Brughor AxeBiter leads a scouting band of 6 orcs and one very filthy ogre named Gog. Not Grog, but Gog, G-O-G. Brughor is a very savage, brutal orc who is more interested in murdering and looting than scouting, unfortunately for everybody else. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to worry about all the problems he's going to cause, and he does. He causes quite a few problems. Brughor and the orcs are from the Many Arrows tribe. So that's the Many Arrows tribe. It's also classified as an orc kingdom. It's been around quite a long time for those of you who don't know too much about Many Arrows. But yes, it is a kingdom. It's got a capital. It's well established. And of course, the leadership has changed many times. And it generally tends to work like a monarchy rather than anything else. So the same family of orcs tends to keep ruling Many Arrows, like many tribes and monarchies work. It's essentially, I know you're thinking, how come orcs have a monarchy? Monarchy. Well, it happens, and this one certainly does. The Many Arrows Kingdom are well organised and they have a capital. The capital is called Dark Arrow Keep. Well, that's essentially the key location. It has sort of changed a little bit, and there is discussions that there are in fact 2 possible locations for their capital, but we're going to stay with that particular story for now. Now, many stories have been circulating through the Sword Coast and have made their way to the Many Arrows tribe or kingdom, stories of new settlers near Phandelver and renewed traffic along the old Brygorg trail. And this has resulted in quite a lot of interest by Many Arrows Kingdom, and they have sent Brughor AxeBiter and his scouting band. They've been sent to Wyventor Crag, not necessarily exactly to that location. Brughor has selected that as a location that he thinks will work for them, but essentially they've been sent very close to that location where Phandelver is, and their job is to scout and collect information. The crag, or Wyventor Crag, is northeast of the Sword Mountains. Now, if you'll have a look on the map right here, you'll see it's marked with an X right at the bottom on the left side, just below Coneberry, and the old Elwell is very close to that. It's pretty much, you can see it's almost right beside each other, but it's south of, well, not south of, but it's northeast of Phandelver. Okay, so that's its location. What else do we know about Brughor? Brughor has been tasked with spying and scouting the area around Neverwinter Woods and Phandelver, as I had already pointed out. Part of his job is to locate human settlements, waylay important travellers that they might find useful as ransom or for collecting additional information, while not drawing attention to himself. The whole point is not to draw attention to yourself as a scouting group and then feed that information back to the Many Arrows leadership. Unfortunately, that's not what Brughor AxeBiter has been doing. Brughor AxeBiter is not good at following orders and has done the exact opposite. Pardon me. So instead of keeping a low profile, he has plundered homesteads, killed people, scared off miners and merchants, attacked caravans moving along Brygorg Trail, and this has caused rather a lot of people know there are orcs in the area as a result of this. So what does that mean essentially for Brughor and his band of scouts? Well, it means that it's resulted in the leadership of Phandelver, Harbin Wester, the town master, putting a bounty on the orcs, or any orcs whatsoever, including Brughor AxeBiter. And the bounty is 100 gold pieces to sort the problem out, which is code for kill, eliminate, dispose of, permanently. So he's got a price on his head, including his scouting band. Brughor stands about just a little bit taller than most other orcs. He carries a large great axe with notches cut into the handle, marking the marking the poor souls that he has butchered along his travels. AxeBiter has sort of a green-grey skin tone and is covered in many small yellow scars from his many battles or injuries that he's taken as he's been doing his work, as you might... Couldn't you call it work? I'd say it's just pleasure and recreation for this rather brutal orc. Brughor's scouting party has amassed a small treasure chest full of coins and perfumes from several of the homesteads that he has plundered and raided, and it's all detailed on page 35. I believe it's like 750 copper pieces, 180 silver pieces, about 62 electrum pieces, and 30 gold pieces, and 3 vials of perfume. Who knows what Brughor and the orcs thought they might do with the perfume, But if it was designed and intended to be used to sell off to somebody, that makes a lot of sense. If they were planning to use it themselves, they should have used it right now, because they already smell really, really bad. A fight with Brughor AxeBiter is basically going to be to the death. He doesn't usually take prisoners or captives, so if you wind up in a bad situation with Brughor AxeBiter, the chances are he is more likely to kill you than to capture you. Now this causes a problem for anybody who's a dungeon master, particularly if the situation goes a little bit haywire and you really need your players to survive and you don't want them to wind up being disposed of. So take what I've just said with a grain of salt. You are the dungeon master. You make the final decision about how the adventure will be run. Doesn't matter what's written in the adventure book. It doesn't matter what Fred says or what anybody else says. You decide how it's going to take place. But I felt like Brughor is the sort of individual who really doesn't allow for quarter. He is a fight to the death kind of orc. Brughor AxeBiter is fearless and bloodthirsty, which is made much worse by the fact that he has a ogre named Gog within the band who is just as evil, brutal and bloodthirsty as he is, and enjoys causing pain. Rather sick. I know it sounds sick, and it is. It's definitely. But the two individuals themselves, you eliminate Brughor and Gog is going to lord it over the rest of the orcs. If you eliminate Gog, Brughor is quite capable of dealing with his band of orcs without any trouble whatsoever, just because of his sheer size, mass, weight, and he's quite smart. He knows how to deal with things. Brughor doesn't believe in mercy, as I said, and would prefer death himself. Now, because he doesn't believe in mercy for others, he certainly won't believe in mercy or being given mercy from somebody else. So if you decide, no, I'm not going to kill Brughor, the chances are he will probably just keep on fighting, because he would prefer to die over disgrace or being captured and shown to be lesser than what he believes himself to be. He's got a sense of pride to him, even if he is a bloodthirsty orc. Brughor also knows that Gog will fight to the death by his side, and this just makes him far more confident and seriously far more dangerous to deal with. He knows that the other orcs don't have his raw courage, and he threatens them with shaming tactics. It's not normally beating. He doesn't normally beat his orcs, although that could take place, but he would shame them because he believes that this is shaming tactics and strategies and methods will bring out the orcish nature in his band, and that's what he sees as the important focus for him when he's leading them. It's about making sure they become more like an orc, more like him. Scary thought, I know. Brughor has made such a name for himself that he has actually quite a few enemies that have sort of pinpointed him as a problem. And Brughor AxeBiter and his orc scouts are hated by the Red Wizard Haman Cost of Old Alwell. Now, I've already done a video on Haman Cost. You're welcome to go and check it out. I think there's two. There's the live stream and the edited video. Now, why does Haman Cost hate Brughor AxeBiter? Well, he knows, one, that orcs are they're like a wild card. You just don't know what they're going to do. He also knows that the orc presence is very close to his camp. They're not that far away. They won't necessarily know exactly where Brughor's camp is, but he knows it's rough, it can't be too far off, and that they have been moving around this location and causing a lot of trouble. Now, usually Brughor doesn't get tangled up with the undead. It's undead. There's no real fun in that. You can't really steal or plunder anything from something that's dead. They have garbage, right? But Haman Cost is a different story. He has quite a lot of different things that would be interesting to Brughor. So Haman Cost would much prefer to see Brughor AxeBiter and his orcs disposed of, and probably will pay or do a favour or request some sort of favour if the player's characters decide to do so, to get rid of Brughor AxeBiter. Now, Brughor AxeBiter is a cunning warrior. He is not stupid. Now, I know when you start looking at the orc stat block, you say, well, Fred, though, look, your standard orc has an intelligence of 7. Stop looking at intelligence. Intelligence is not important. Have a look at wisdom. Wisdom is 11 for a standard orc, and Brughor AxeBiter is not a standard orc. Now, the adventure actually states what sort of changes you should make to Brughor AxeBiter. He has more hit points, but you should also sort of view Brughor AxeBiter as probably not being quite as stupid as the other orcs. And really, orcs aren't stupid. They just don't have a high intelligence. They have an average wisdom, which means they are dangerous. So Brughor AxeBiter is a cunning warrior who understands battle tactics. And make sure to use some decent orc battle tactics. I have done videos on orcs and what sort of battle tactics you can use with an orc. So go check out those videos if you're unsure what to do. There is a website called The Monsters Know, which I believe you'll find a lot of information on how to run lots of different monsters. It's not all going to be gold there, just like my own content, but I'm sure it will give you some ideas. So Brughor, he is aware that few creatures can stop a large group of orcs charging into close quarter with great axes, particularly if they focus on one foe. And that's what I would probably do with your orcs. When they decide to charge in and cause strife for anybody, I would probably target one particular player character till they go down. Now, it's up to you whether you keep throwing in attacks while they're down and chop them up into pieces. But remember, this is an adventure that was designed for people freshly coming into the game. So normally, the Lost Mine of Phandelver is used by new Dungeon Masters or Dungeon Masters who have been out of the mix for a while and are coming back into it. There are people who have been playing for some time who have used the Lost Mine of Phandelver, but often it is used by new Dungeon Masters and new people coming in. So I would be... It's up to you how you do that. I'm not going to tell you how you should deal with that, but I would at least be focusing your orc attacks on one particular individual till they go down, and then shift over to somebody else until they go down, and just work your way through the player's characters and the party that they have presented. Brughor has selected a cave to set up camp, and I would say, now when in the adventure there's no map, okay, there's no map. In the adventure it says that the camp is basically a cave. I would say that Brughor has probably selected a cave to set up camp, but it's just outside. The camp itself is probably more likely just outside, but all of the plundered goods are hidden inside the cave or kept out of the rain and weather. So as I said, there is no map for Wyvern Tor and the Brughor AxeBiter's orc campsite. So, and if you have a look on the internet, you probably won't find any maps of Wyvern Tor Crag, which is where they are set up. They are set up in or close to a cave, either in or outside of the cave. Wyvern Tor Crag is basically just a large hill that's not quite a full-blown mountain. That's all it is. And there's a lot of brush and trees sort of scattered around in these hills around the Wyvern Tor Crag itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you with 2 possible ideas for maps, because I know somebody's going to ask me. So I have provided 2 possible maps or setup ideas for this video, and you can work your way through this. The first one is an Orc Brigade camp, and it just sort of lays out what it would look like. Now, I would imagine that the fire would not be going during the day, and it's probably only used at night to keep people warm, not people, orcs warm, to keep your orcs warm, and to cook food if they decide to cook food. It's not required for light, because as a general rule, orcs can see in the dark. And even if you don't get the full benefit of bright light when you're in the dark, which you don't with dark vision because orcs have dark vision. By lighting a fire, you have just sort of announced that you are there. So the chances are that the fire does not get lit at night so that it isn't picked up. But chances are there is a trail of smoke that occurs from time to time during the day when they are cooking food or preparing stuff, maybe heating water or something like that. You decide how you're going to do that. Now, Brughor AxeBiter is smart enough to have done the following for his campsite, in my view. You do not need to listen to any of this, by the way, okay? You can ignore all of it. My assessment is that Brughor AxeBiter would not put a campfire in the cave. If they are using the cave as their campsite, the fire is probably just outside of the cave and probably just off to the side so that the wind doesn't blow, and there'll be some sort of brush in front of the cave entrance to stop the smoke from the fire blowing into the cave and causing a whole lot of problems like people choking. Because that's what happens, right? You put a campfire in a cave and you wind up with it full of smoke and you can't stay there anymore. So that's just one piece of advice I have for you. Ensure that the cave has a rear escape route that is difficult to find and probably near impossible to find. It is not difficult to make it very, very hard to find the exit route for a cave. So if you've got your cave entrance, your back route is probably going to be well disguised because it doesn't have a lot of use. There won't be footprints there. It's probably completely concealed with either boulders or brush or something, and it might even be very, very small and hard to find, and that makes it even more difficult. So there's not going to be a lot of telltale signs. So making a perception check or even an investigation check for a back route into a cave doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. But it's a different story when it comes to finding the front entrance of a cave where orcs are moving in and out of it to go and do their scouting, their plundering, their raiding, and their killing. Okay? All right, now, this is one setup. Here is number 2 setup. And I only just found it for those of you who are wondering, how on Fred, it says Wyvern Tor, and you said I couldn't find a map of Wyvern Tor. I'm talking about Wyvern Tor as in terms of the outside section of Wyvern Tor. As far as I know, there is no sort of crag map that you can use. But I did find this, and it's supposed to be, somebody's made it up. It looks really pretty. It has all of the basics that you need. You know, it's a very, very small location, and you could use this quite easily in your game if you wanted to. You'll need to let me know if you want access to the maps, if you can't find them. I just Googled them. Just type in Google it, and you'll find maps just like these. Otherwise, let me know, and I will see if I can't get them into a location where you can download them. Make sure that you arrange some sort of alarm system or traps around the perimeter of the campsite or the cave entrance. My feeling is that Brygorg would do this, and anybody would, whether it be an orc or it be the player's characters who are human or elves or dwarves or whatever. When you set up camp, you set up some sort of alarm system just in case somebody decides to venture into your location. Now that might be an alarm system with a tripwire, it might be just things that like a bell, it might be things that are going to make noise, it might be just scattering dry leaves around the camp location so that when people stand in that area it makes a lot of noise, because dried up leaves are quite noisy. When you stand on them you could hear it for a long way away, provided you don't have orcs bellowing and making lots of noise. And the last thing is setting up, so Brygorg would set up a reliable guard or sentry and probably punish orcs brutally for not keeping a good watch. That's my view. If you're going to have any kind of location where you need it to be protected and you decide to use a guard or a sentry, if they're not doing their job properly, there's always severe punishments, correct? Okay, so that covers pretty much everything I have on Brughor AxeBiter of the Many Arrows tribe or kingdom, and his little band of scouts. Now, when it comes to how do I talk Brughor, how do I talk orc? my suggestion to you is just buggerize the English language. That's all it really is. Slur your speech. As a New Zealander, I'm very, very capable of pronouncing things that sound slurred. Just think, I've been boozing and I can't pronounce anything correctly and stick consonants in front of vowels that don't make a lot of sense and just jumble things up. There are plenty of examples out there. If you're not really worried about that sort of thing, then that's cool. In terms of an accent, I never really worry about an accent or doing a funny voice because it's always difficult for me to maintain it. And I find at the end of the night, because I'm not a trained voice actor, my voice is really strained and sore, so I don't tend to do voices for creatures and monsters. And if I do, it's usually just a single sentence at the very beginning, and then I go back to my normal voice and I just talk and try and act the character rather than trying to do a funny voice or a voice that I think is appropriate for the creature that I'm trying to present, or the NPC. Okay, so that's it. That's everything on Brughor AxeBiter. If you found this video helpful or informative, please share and like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed, because I have more content like this. If you want to come back and watch more of it, there is plenty of more stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I have plenty of things as it happens. Make sure to hit the bell button to occasionally be notified when I am live or when I publish a new video. If you want to support my channel, you did so by watching this video. Thank you very much. I have hundreds more, plenty of stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver, plenty of stuff for players and dungeon masters. I don't do Patreon, and I don't intend to for 2019, but I do have affiliate links to the Book Depository and Amazon, where you can buy stuff online and I get a small commission, and you pay exactly the same price as you normally would. And that's fine with me. If you want to do that, that's great. If you don't, don't. Now, when it comes to questions, give your feedback in the live chat now. So feedback, questions, feedback, your advice, how it went for you in your group. Also too, in terms of whether you disagree or you did something a little bit different, remember, none of this is really fixed in concrete. What you get in the adventure is really a skeleton, and you have to do the rest of the work. And I've kind of tried to provide you with a little bit more, or a few ideas. Now, if you're not part of the live stream, that's what the comment section is all about. So jump down in the comment section when it's published by YouTube and put in your feedback. And before I say my final words and end this particular presentation, for those of you who wanted to know, Fred, what happened to your group? Well, my group found the cave, and they were very quiet. They did not get discovered. They killed the sentry orc without too much trouble. I didn't even have a time to shout out, because they got a surprise on round one, and so they did it really quietly. They didn't use fireballs or loud techniques. They did it all very quietly. Then they set up a fire at the entrance to the cave, lit it, and just smoked the orcs out, sitting in the brush, and peppered them with ranged fire. So yes. It didn't go well for my monsters that day, and they all died horribly. But then again, my players at that time were very, very smart. Had a whole bunch of people, and they were all dungeon masters, and they all decided to sit at my table. Okay, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone, but I am moving myself around and trying to make sure that my head is sort of roughly, is it in the middle? Somewhere like that? Yeah, okay, let's go back to the, bring my face up, go to the live chat, see where we're at, how far have I got to go through here? My face should be coming up any moment. Okay, Brandon. Hello, Fred. How are you? Yes, I said hi to Brandon already. Steve's here. Joe's here. Dear Jesus is here. Fate. What's that? Phandelver. Love your videos, Fred. Thank you very much. I'm Fred the Free. Hi Jack. Hi Darren, how's it going? Yes, you made it to this one. Isn't it? It's great. I'm glad you're able to make it. I know it's a little bit awkward, but my time frame has changed in terms of what days I work, so I have to sort of do it on this day, on my days off. Otherwise, it doesn't really work out very well. I would be home at like the wrong time for everybody else. Wizard, how's it going? Hi everyone, we're just going to play some D&D now. Alright, go have a good time, mate. Have a good time. I'm going to be playing tonight myself. After this video, I've got to go and do some housework, cook some food, and then I'm trucking off to my home game where I will go and play John Paul's campaign. I don't honestly know what it's called, but we are Knights of the Unicorn, and I am playing a paladin sorcerer. Yes, wild magic. A lot of wild magic, a lot of hilarity, and a lot of chaos. Hopefully it's to the benefit of the group rather than hamstringing them quite so much. I did actually make sure to clear it with the players and the Dungeon Master before I did it though. Michael, how's it going? I love your work on Lost Mine of Phandelver. Thank you, Michael. I really hope it is working out for you. If it is, that's excellent. Where else are we? Dear Jesus, since Wyventor is near Coneberry, your group can knock out 2 more side quests along the way. Yeah, they could. Yep, that's right. Now, Michael, as I said, I know there are no maps included in the adventure, and that's quite deliberate on the Wizards of the Coast's part. It's so that you don't focus on the solution to the encounter being combat only. It's not something that would be hard for you to create, which is why they didn't include a map. And because of space too, I would imagine that space would have been an issue. It is something you can just draw your own cave map. It's actually a lot of the older adventures would often leave a location blank for the Dungeon Master to fill in. Keep on the Borderlands is like that. There's supposed to be a wizard tower, but there's no actual map of the wizard tower itself. So Gary Gygax, they're doing very much what Gary Gygax would have done, and those people who were writing adventures back then, and what TSR was doing. They would often have adventures where there was not a complete picture. But I've provided you with a couple of maps, and you can decide if you want to pick them up or not. Where can you find them? If you really want to use those particular maps and you think they might be useful to you, jump onto Facebook, look for the HowtoDandD Facebook group, join it, and I will download those maps onto there if people want them. If you don't want the maps, great. But now is the time to say I want the maps or I don't want the maps. If you don't need the maps, great, just draw your own. I encourage you to draw your own cave map. It's not going to be that hard. Darren, that's the map I used for Wyventor, and just drew up my own map for outside the cave. Yeah, well, fair enough. Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Darren. It's exactly what I think they're trying to encourage people to do, particularly even if they are starting out, is just to get used to the idea of drawing your own maps and locations. Wookie boy, how's it going? Oh, nice. Definitely using this. Okay, good. Dear Jesus, I used that map too, laugh out loud. Well, it's probably because when you were trying to decide whether you would draw the map or you would see, oh, I'll just do a Google search and see if I can find the map. It came up pretty quickly, and it was the most obvious map to use, right? Because when you do a search, all of the other maps are so small that when you blow them up, they just look like a great huge blur. But that one's pretty crisp and clean. Benny Bros, hey Fred, could you post those maps on Facebook page? Yes, Benny Bros, you have said the magic word. I will make sure to post those maps on the HowtoDandD Facebook group. And if you're not part of the Facebook group, you're welcome to come and join. Okay, chances are, as I said, if you're not part of Facebook and you don't like touching it and you feel that it's bad and evil, which I can understand to a certain degree, then just do a Google search. You'll find them. They're not hard to find. Ugly Weirdo. Oh, that's an interesting name. Ugly Weirdo. Hello, you're new. Hey, so if you're a new Dungeon Master, this is your opportunity, man. If you have any questions, doesn't have to be related to Brughor AxeBiter. Okay? If it's not about Brughor AxeBiter, I'll answer those questions while I'm here before I lose my voice and I have to go. So start punching in anything you want to ask if you feel you need any help. If you don't, that's fine. Albert Smith, enjoyed it. Haven't played in years and just got started. Just got the starter set. Yep, cool. Which is why I made these videos. It's pretty clear to me that it's a no-brainer. These videos are now the most popular videos that I make, and they're quite long, as most of you know. They're anywhere from 15, 20 minutes. That's the edited down version. Sometimes 30 minutes. They're 30 minutes long, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes long. The live streams can be up to an hour, and people still watch so many of them. That's actually what keeps my channel trucking along, is these videos. So there's a huge demand. So I'm just amazed that other people haven't been doing it. Anyway, their loss. It didn't let you put that comment up, Joe, because of the word you used. But I don't think YouTube understood that it wasn't an insult. It had assumed that it was an insult because of the word phrasing. Its grammar's not great. Okay, where else are we? Now, we just talked about Albert. Wookie Boy, will you be doing a different adventure module after you finish up with the Lost Mine of Phandelver, like the Curse of Strahd? Well, yes, I probably will. When I finish up with the Lost Mine of Phandelver, I will do a different adventure that I have run. I will not do a guide on how to run an adventure if I have not run it. So there will be limits to what I can put up. But if I have run the adventure and I have something to actually offer you, then great. But I'm not going to talk out of my backside about stuff I don't know. As for the Curse of Strahd, since you have actually mentioned the Curse of Strahd, Wookie Boy, there was a poll that I put up and asking what Dungeon Masters wanted me to do next. And I did the topic they wanted me to do. And one of those topics that was in there, I think, had something to do with the Curse of Strahd, running the Curse of Strahd. So I think there's a good chance that next weekend, since I have to do a Dungeon Master guide, or Q&A should I say, a Dungeon Master Q&A on a different topic other than Lost Mine of Phandelver each month, and I also do one for the players, there's a good chance that it might be the Curse of Strahd. I won't tell you exactly what it is because it comes down to whether I get enough time to write it. If I can write it, great. If I can't, then I'll have to pull something I've already prepared. So yeah, stick around. You might find that useful if that's what you're after. So there will be other things. Brandon, Fred, I've seen you make Curse of Strahd and lots of Lost Mine of Phandelver. Which modules do you prefer running or playing? Okay, so here's... If we're talking about the current stuff, I have run the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I've run some of the Adventurers League adventures that you can get, those really short ones. They're not really that short. They're like 25, 30 pages for something that's only going to play out in 2 to 4 hours. I hate those things, but I have run some of them. I have used Horde of the Dragon Queen, so I've run Horde of the Dragon Queen. I have run Rise of Tiamat. Somebody's going to correct me on how I pronounce Tiamat, so we'll go Tiamat, something like that. So I've run that right through. I've run Revenge of the Giants, which was a Dungeons & Dragons 4e adventure, which you probably don't know too much about, which is actually just based on an old... Against the Giants. Basically, it's a reimagining of Against the Giants, which is an older adventure. I have run the Curse of Strahd because I've also run the original Ravenloft using the Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules. So I've run that as well. I've run the Isle of Dread, or Island of Dread. Now that was sort of released as a play test beta thing for Dungeons and Dragons Next, but I ran it with the Dungeons and Dragons 5e rules partway through the beta testing. So I used the Isle of Dread through the beta testing. Then when I was asked to join the alpha play test, I continued to run and give feedback on the Isle of Dread during that process. And then when they released the full-blown adventure rule set, I used the Dungeons and Dragons 5e official rules to run it at that point. I've also run Keep on the Borderlands, Palace of the Silver Princess, the original, the one that wasn't censored and adjusted, the one that got into so much trouble. I've run The Land Behind the Magic Mirror, and there's probably a couple more that are the Tomb of Horrors. I've run parts of that, but there's a Dungeons and Dragons 4e version, which actually has like, I think it's it's either 3 or 4 different adventures that all sort of scaled for different levels of play that you can build together. So I've run that as well. So I've got a lot of bits and pieces, and there's other things as well, but I won't talk about them because I could be here forever. And the chat box is getting full. So Brandon, did that answer your? Was I answering that question? I've played in a few other. I played the Princes of the Apocalypse. I ran part of Princes of the Apocalypse, but hated it, and so did my players. I actually stopped running the game, stopped dungeon mastering the Prince of the Apocalypse, and I just played in it. I got somebody else to do the DMing, and then they were fine with doing it. It was really hard work for them. I have played the first part of Out of the Abyss, which I really hated. I really, really did hate being a prisoner. For those of you who wonder how it starts, it sucks. And I tried really hard to figure out how to escape too. I was probably working harder than any other player, trying everything I could possibly think of, taking every precaution. It was so difficult. So that's that covered. I think that's everything. There's probably more things I've just forgotten. There's a whole lot of Pathfinder stuff as well, which is still Dungeons and Dragons. It might not be Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but it's Pathfinder's still D&D. Ugly Weirdo, new subscriber, been DMing for decades. Okay, well, good, excellent. I like your long form stuff. Well, apparently YouTube likes it as well. I'm glad it's working for you. I started doing a lot of really short videos when I started doing my videos. They were like, 3-4 minutes, and it's really hard to get everything in that space of time to actually get across. I had 4 pages of notes, of which just for this topic, and I also went into detail that wasn't written down, and I also needed to breathe and drink some water, otherwise I would have passed out. So yeah, it does get a little bit longer, and I love the idea of being able to interact with you guys. It saves me a whole lot of time. I don't have to answer quite so many comments. So it's good for me, and it's good for you guys too, I think. All right, what else have we got here? Where else are we? Wookie Boy, will definitely watch that Strahd stream. Anyways, got to go, everybody. Bye. All right, I'll see you later, Wookie Boy. He's probably already gone. I've been a little bit slow getting through the chat. Benny Boy, Benny Bros. Sorry, not Benny Boys. It's not Benny Boys. Sorry, man. Sorry, Benny. Benny, it wasn't on my phone. It's a mistake. Think you'll ever make a glass staff video? Do you think I will make a Iano Albrecht glass staff video? Well, yeah, I will. I've just not done it. Why have I not done it? Because, to be fair, a lot of the information about glass staff is scattered throughout the adventure, and you have to read between the lines to figure out what's going on. So he's actually a very difficult character to actually put a video together for, which is why you haven't seen it. And I realized that when I was looking at it, I was like, no, Fred, I'm going to do the stuff that I think people need quickly, and then I'm going to do the stuff that's easy. So I've been totally selfish and just done the easy stuff, okay, or the easy-ish stuff. And as we go through this, I'll do the harder stuff, and glass staff is the hard stuff, okay? But it's coming, it just hasn't happened yet. Also, if Clark escapes the cave, do you have him appear later somewhere else, like Cragmore Castle? Absolutely, Benny. Go for it. I would definitely do that. Or he takes up residence in a different new location that you can draw up and make your own. Maybe he now establishes himself in a different cave, or in a forest area, or by a lake, or actually has a camp, or maybe he takes over a homestead, and when you go to this homestead, all the animals there's just no animals. The farm has gone to pot because Clark and his minions are now living there. So absolutely, change his position. If he's still alive, use him again. Why not? Brandon, you have an impressive resume. Thank you. To be fair though, I think you'll find that a lot of dungeon masters have impressive resumes. Now, remember, a lot of my dungeon mastering is not just home groups, but public play. And I, like a fool, was doing DMing about 3 or 4 games a week at one point, many years back. Particularly the public dungeon masters, the ones that run Adventurers League, they always find themselves running a lot of content just because of the consumption so fast, and they don't have to worry about people not showing up. Usually when they don't show up, there's a whole lot of players who are freaking out. So right now, where I live, I'm in Helensville, about an hour from me in Auckland. There's 10 people sitting at a table for one dungeon master, and they've got part of the store playing in the store. The store is full. The rest of them are over in the cafe over the road playing there as well. So that's how it grows. But thank you, by the way, Brandon. Dear Jesus, at Fred, which adventure was censored? Again, sorry, didn't catch the name. Okay, Palace of the Silver Princess. So that's Palace of the Silver Princess. It's the first Dungeons and Dragons adventure written by a woman, and it had no editing. Gary told them not to do any major editing, and she had basically taken the piss out of the TSR management, and had turned them into a monster and stuck it in the adventure. And so when it hit the shelves, and suddenly there were comments about it, and she got somebody to draw their caricature image as part of the monster so accurately that I don't think she got any jobs after that. I think things went downhill quite a lot. So yeah, so that's Palace of the Silver Princess, and that's the original one. They did put out a second version. Pathfinder is still D&D. Yeah, I believe it is. What else? Richard Young. All of my maps are finally finished and 3/4 of the way done painting my minis. Oh my, just gotta get a schedule for my group next time. Yep. Well, all the best with that, Richard. I hope it all works out. Beanie, what do you got here? Is Pathfinder still basically 3rd edition rule set? So Pathfinder, the first version of Pathfinder, is just an open game license game using 3.5. So that's Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 was under the open game license. They took those mechanics, they made a couple of slight tweaks or changes, but nothing significant, nothing enough to be able to call the game an original piece of intellectual property. Okay, so it is still, now in terms of Dungeons and Dragons being related to Pathfinder 2, I think what Pathfinder 2 has taken a lot of elements from Dungeons and Dragons 5e and other game systems. I don't know very much about it, and I probably won't go and play with it because I'm fine staying with Dungeons and Dragons 5e. I'm quite happy. That's where, honestly, if I'm in New Zealand, I'll tell you now, the Pathfinder Society community and the number of people playing Pathfinder in New Zealand is tiny. The number of people playing Dungeons and Dragons 5e and Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dragons 5e is huge, massive, monstrous. There's a few people still playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so that's version 2. There's some playing 3.5. There's some playing Dungeons and Dragons 4e, not a lot, but most of them have gone to version 5. Because you can still get most of it free anyway. You don't have to go and buy it. Okay. What else we got here? Ugly Weirdo. It's most of the Open Game License 3. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Material with some updates to smooth out the rule set. Yeah. Well, that was supposedly what it's supposed to do. I have had arguments with people about whether Pathfinder smoothed out things or just made it more complicated. But it's really not important. It's preference, you know. If you like complexity, you go with Pathfinder. If you want something a little bit more streamlined, you'll go with Dungeons and Dragons 5e or something else. Richard, between unpainted and a already painted mini, like, what's that? Oh, $150 worth. You're doing pretty well. I don't know how many miniatures you've got between your unpainted and painted miniatures. $150 sounds like a lot. In New Zealand money, $150 would get me, what is it now? It's about 30 something dollars for a booster box. So it's not a lot. It's pretty sparse for maybe five boxes. I might get another in 5 or 6 boxes, maybe 6 boxes with my my discount that I get. Everybody else it's gonna be about 4 boxes, maybe 5 boxes. It depends, because they tend to be like 30 something dollars in New Zealand. Where you are, if you're paying Canadian or US dollars, that'll be different, obviously. So hopefully that's got what you wanted. But go with the Dungeons and Dragons board games. I've got videos talking about that. I know I need to update that video because it's going the where to buy cheap official Dungeons and Dragons miniatures for 2017 is almost out of date. That information is still useful, but some of it won't apply, and I know I need to redo that video. But you're doing pretty well. I'm sure you've got a good supply now. Dear Jesus, sounds about right, Richard. Minis, yeah, Richard's got here. Minis are just for the mapped areas, not the theatre of the mind encounters. Exactly. I don't always use a map in miniatures, but I have the map and miniatures there to alleviate the stress that it causes for people who don't like doing theatre of the mind. Sometimes I just can't be buggered. It's like, do I really want to lay out a map and put miniatures down? I know what's going to happen. Let's just let them do it. And sometimes I don't even bother to... Oh, you want to do this? Sure. Oh, can I make an attack roll? Do you want me to roll initiative? No. If all you're going to do is do that, then it's over. The combat's done. They died. We're over. Let's move on. Okay, what else we got here? Richard. Couldn't find a green flame skull, so I got a yellow will-o'-wisp. It's green and flaming with orbs, and it's all right or okay. Do you know what I think would be a good way of dealing with your flaming skull is to have a base, create a stalk, make it a reasonably strong stalk, drill a hole into a plastic skull, and what you want is a skull that's a little bit bigger, so it's it might not be quite head size for a miniature, but if you got sort of you buy a lot of Games Workshop stuff, is drill a hole into a skull, put the stalk into that, get a bit of glue and just stick it on the back end of the skull, and then draw it down so it creates wisps behind, and then let it dry with the wisps pointing down. Do one at a time, and that'll sort of look like these flames coming off the back of the skull. You get that Ghost Rider look, and then paint it green and flamey, and you're away. Ooh, that's a video I can do. I'll get round to that at some point. The only problem is the skull, because getting a plastic skull might not be something that everybody can do in every single country around the world. I'll have a think about that. That might solve your problem. What else we got here? Sorry, I lost track of where I was. Richard, what do you got here? If you look up Drow Archmage, it's the exact Nesna, the Spider Mini. It's really nice, having it for the final fight for aesthetics. Fair enough. Okay. Dear Jesus, I ended up using the Legends of Drizzt board game minis for Nesna. It's probably the same. It's close enough. I bought a whole lot of stuff. There was a Dungeon Command that came out many years ago, and I bought the Loth box, the Drow box. Pardon me. Oh. And it had a whole lot of Drow in it, and I just bought multiples of that until I had a nice collection. Because what you're getting, it wouldn't be effective or cost effective to do Dungeon Commands now, not unless you can find them on a really, really cheap sale, because they're way too expensive. But in the past, they were a good way of picking up exactly what I wanted. If I wanted orcs or goblins, or I wanted Drow or something else, that was the way to go. So that's how I got a lot of my miniatures. Not just buying the Dungeons and Dragons board games. And they're pre-painted. Not going to be helpful now though, unfortunately. Richard, might be if it's got the gold spider staff. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Okay, I see what you're going with this. Dear Jesus, yep, it has the spider on the staff, laugh out loud. Well, it's Drow, so they're usually going to have images and motifs and icons that look like spiders. Joe, if I wanted to send you a few miniatures, how much would it run me from the States? Joe, I would love you to, but I want to warn you now, I don't know how much it will cost, but you've got to understand where you are. I am at the arse end of the world. I know I used that word. I am at the bottom of the world. I am so far away, and there's a great huge stretch of water, so everything has to be either flown over, which is really costly, or shipped over, which is costly too. So it just takes a lot longer. So I'd be very careful. You might find that whatever cost you paid in miniatures is your cost of freight to get it to me, which is probably why WizKids hasn't sent me anything, and Gale Force 9 sent me stuff by email, but it must have cost them quite a lot to send me all that stuff, because it would have weighed a fair amount. So yeah, I would check that out before you even consider doing that. Okay. But thank you for the offer. Richard, probably depends on the box size and weight. Yeah, and remember, it's travelling a long way. New Zealand is a long way off. Richard, sorry Caps. No, it's all right. You're not shouting. We got the message. Dear Jesus, it's expensive. I was going to send a Games Workshop seam scraper, and it was pricey. Yes, it would have been pricey. If you were trying to send me a scraper from Games Workshop, you would have looked at it and thought, it's cost me more than the scraper. What's going on there? It's just because I'm in New Zealand. Joe, I just brought what's it? Spirit Hosts Night Horts. I'm not going to glue them together. Going to mount them on flight stands. Okay. Currently working on these right now. Will post pics when done. So in the past, when I wanted to send something from New Zealand, outside of New Zealand, or even within New Zealand, I would often, if I could find something on a site that had free shipping, I would use them, such as the Book Depository. I've sent Dungeon Master screens and bits and pieces to people using the Book Depository because they have free shipping. I don't use Amazon because unless you're in the United States and you spend sufficient money, it just winds up being too costly. What else? Yeah, post some pics, Joe. Antonia. Is it Anton? I feel like you've got... if I've not pronounced it correctly, I do apologise. Because I can see there's a couple of dots there, so the Anton. Is it Anton or Anton? It'll be one of those. And what's that? In 81, I played my first module, Amber Castle. Okay, I brought PDFs of all the new old modules, of all these old modules. Yeah, you can get the old modules on PDFs for nostalgia, and intend to run using Dungeons and Dragons 5e. One of the things you'll find with the older adventures, they are short, they have the same sort of, they're not necessarily got as clean a layout as the Lost Mine of Phandelver, but they're really impressive because they're only usually about 30-35 pages long, and they're easy to run, and there really isn't a lot of conversion required. You can probably just pluck and plop things in from your monster's monster manual very quickly. So I have run a lot of old adventures with no prep, and in other words, I didn't have to convert anything over. Although sometimes with magic items I did, because it wasn't quite so easy. I just find it a wall to climb, and to give him real justice or wing it any advice. Look, it's not a wall, trust me. It's the magic items that I found troublesome. Some of the old adventures have special monsters that you won't find in the monster manual or any of the other source books, or in the free PDF that you can download that has monsters in it. You'll find that some of those monsters you'll have to make. Go and use D&D Beyond. Use the free version of D&D Beyond and just build it that way. There won't be that much you need to do. Magic items, you can do the same thing with D&D Beyond for free. Just go in there and just enter the details, and it pumps it out as an image, which you can capture using your snip tool. And if you don't know what snip tool is, just type in snip tool into Windows and it'll pop up, and you just use it. And if you're not, that's what YouTube is, if you haven't used it before. And then you can print it out. You can also print it out as a PDF. I found it really helpful when I needed to do that sort of thing. So my advice is go for it. Richard, do you think it would affect the story much if I switch the dragon for a red? Because I have a red dragon, and I'll save me $15. You know, Richard, there's two ways you can look at this. In terms of spending money for a green dragon, a young green dragon, you can use the red dragon miniature and call it a green dragon without having to paint it. You know, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, so the players and you can use your imagination. Or if you feel the green dragon, I'm going to take the green dragon out and I'm going to use a young red dragon, then do that as well. It's not really a big issue. I don't think it's a hassle. The only thing is you'll find that it's easier for the players to deal with a red dragon than a green dragon. That's less to do with the number of hit points and anything like that, or its armor class, or any other features it might have. It's more to do with the type of saving throw that the breath weapon has, because your fire-breathing dragon, your red dragon, is a dexterity saving throw. But the green dragon is a constitution saving throw. And that'll really mess up a lot of characters who were expecting that having a good dexterity saving throw modifier will be the difference between success and failure. They rely on that. I know a lot of my players always assume with every dragon, doesn't matter what color it is, what type of dragon, but I've got a really high dexterity saving throw. I make a dexterity saving throw, right? No. This breath weapon, it's not a dexterity saving throw. It's something else. That's a different dragon. So hence the green dragon's pretty rough, and all of that's going to bleed round corners as well. all that breath weapon. And you know, same thing really applies to fire to a large extent. But things like poison gas or poison breath is probably going to go through a smaller gap than a fire. Does that make sense? USA, Anthony, I'll go with Anthony. Richard, fair enough. I didn't think about that. Green is more cunning, and red is just a tank and spank encounter. Dear. Well, I suppose it is. Red dragons have their place, but I've always found that it's the dragons that aren't red dragons are the ones that the players have the most trouble with. Makes sense, yes. Okay, look, if there aren't any more questions about the Lost Mine of Phandelver or dungeon mastering in general, or any questions around Brughor AxeBiter, then I'm going to head off and I will catch up with people tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow? It's my day off tomorrow, so I will probably I'm going to make a miniature. I think I'm going to make an air elemental. I think so. I'm not sure. I haven't decided. We'll see. You'll know when I put it up. It'll go up as a reminder. So you know my channel puts out stuff every day, right? Every day there's something. Just come back every day and have a look to see what it is. And if it's something you like the look of, then great. And if it doesn't, just skip past it. Okay, I'm going to head off. So look after yourself. Whether it's night, day, morning, afternoon, look after yourself, look after your family, and I will see you later. I'll see you in the next live stream.